Welcome to episode 3 in our series on the basics of using Accelerate for Microsoft 365. In our previous video, we used the Lambda editor to promote our factorial function from the REPL to our spreadsheet using our Greek Lambda function. This created a nameless function that we were able to apply to multiple values in a column using the normal Excel cut and paste paradigm. In this video, we will use the define special function to give it a scheme name. We'll use the define name dialog of Excel to give it an Excel name. We'll use eval to call it both ways. We'll discuss the benefits of both ways of naming Lambda expressions and get into more detail about the Lambda editor before we explore eval and apply. First, let's look at how easy it is to give a name to our persistent Lambda function. To create a named Lambda expression from an anonymous one is quite simple. We go to the code of the previous Lambda expression. We will copy that. We recommend creating a separate tab of definitions. You'll go to the Lambda button, but you'll select define a named Lambda. In this case, we will overwrite the boilerplate code with our paste, and we will rename it to factorial. And we will accept. It's good practice to give it a nice descriptive thing, so we'll call here compute factorial of n. Okay, now we'll go back here. Oh, by the way, there's this hash code business. Don't worry about that. That is to force recomputation when you're using it by its Excel name, which we'll get into shortly. For now, you just need to know you have a function called factorial that takes one argument. So now we will change how we're calling it here, and we will call it with evaluate a named Lambda. We're going to swap here so we can give it a name instead of some code. We're going to call factorial, and we're going to call it by setting to A1. All right, seems to have worked. Now let's apply it to the others. Control C and Control V. All right, great, it works. Now let's take a quick recap before we get into naming lambdas. Okay, so some notes. The special define function takes at least 2 parameters, the scheme name with compile exactly 1 semantics, and the code representing the lambda expression or parameter definition. That's an advanced topic we'll get into later. It can take up to 58 more parameters depending on the function arity. Arity refers to the number of named arguments. That's up to you as the creator of the function. The limits imposed by Excel's add-in API, which you don't have to worry about. Best practice is to save your defined Lambda expression in their own tab. Some of the output can then be obscured by a useful comment or description, which is good to have anyway for self-documenting spreadsheets. Regarding arity, if you ever find yourself using more than a handful of name parameters, you may need to break it up into smaller number of methods. We'll get into these kinds of coding practices in our advanced series. Now we'll take a look at how to give a named Lambda an Excel name and discuss some of the reasons you might want to do that. So you can see that we're calling it right now by its scheme name, which we put in quotation marks. In order to give it a useful Excel name, we go back to the definitions tab, we click on the definition of it, and we go to the formulas tab where they have the define name dialog. In this case, we'll give it the name factorial function, and we will give it a quick little description, compute factorial of an integer n. Okay, so now it has an Excel name. What is the utility of that? So let's go back here and redo this. We'll use eval, but this time we'll do it sort of by hand. Since it's not a lot of typing, we have the option not to use that. Now we can start to type factorial, and you'll see that the IntelliSense gets it right there for us. So we just factorial function A1 and enter, and it works. And now, of course, we can do some cut and paste, Control V, and it works. So this allows us to refer to it by a useful Excel name, which IntelliSense helps us find. So that's one of the reasons you want to do it. We'll get into more now as we talk about this in our notes. Okay, demo 2 notes. The define name dialog lets you give a region or cell name or cell a name that can be referred to in formula expressions. When using an Excel name as a reference, we'll omit the quotation marks and use camel case. When using a scheme name, we'll use quotation marks and kebab case, which is more in line with scheme conventions. Our best practices are to use the Excel name for volatile functions defined in the spreadsheet. Use the scheme name when referring to code in the library. Okay, the Lambda editor. Let's blaze through this. We have a toolbar, which at this point is a little bit more informational than functional. Kind of tells you where you are more than anything. The asterisk is that we have that little swap button, which we will get into in the next video, and the reasons for that. We have a code editor where you can deal with writing scheme code in a nice, pretty printing, color-coded way. It has a limit of around 255 characters. This is imposed by Excel, but it will, in practice, not really impede anything we want to do. As we get into more advanced topics, you'll see why. We'll use Control-Shift-T to come out of the code editor and go into the Lambda arguments section. And here we will separate them by spaces, unless we are using Excel functions, in which case we will separate them with semicolons. And then we have the formula preview, which gives you an idea of what you don't have to type because of the other features of the Lambda editor. That's what you're going to see in the formula bar when you accept any changes. All right, in our next video, we will get into more detail about the Lambda editor when using eval and apply functions, especially when switching between Lambda expressions and names. We'll talk about variadic functions and how they apply to regions of possibly dynamic data. This could be dynamic arrays, columns, rows, or both. Until then, thank you for watching, and don't hesitate to contact us if you need any help.